I'm at Omakura, planning on sidetracking a little bit. I'm going to try out this board here. It's a ESP32 gateway board. It comes from Olimex, and the nice thing about it is it has a Ethernet hardware on the board, so I can test out doing my pings by going straight to the Ethernet rather than over the Wi-Fi. I just want to see whether I get more repeatable ping values if I use the hardware connection to the internet rather than the Wi-Fi connection to the internet. We'll see how it goes. I think my ping and my Bing routine should work just the same once I've connected up using the different network connectivity. I'm traveling, so I don't have a wired network available to me. So I'm using this, so you see in the top I've got the ESP32 gateway with the hardwired Ethernet port. To make up for not having a wired Ethernet network, I'm using the Netgear WNCA 3001, which when you first turn it on and reset it, it sets up a little network on the Ethernet port of that. It has an address of 192.168.1.251, so I can use this to simulate connecting the ESP32 to an Ethernet connection. As well as that, to tie all the pieces together for the power, I'm using just a USB-C dongle. So power from that's going to the ESP32 gateway and the Netgear, and as well it allows the communication between the development machine I'm using, which is a Surface Go. It's connecting on COM8 again through the USB dongle up to the ESP32 gateway. Here's what the whole thing looks like, literally on the kitchen table. Got a Surface Go as my portable computer that's providing power and COM connectivity to the ESP32, and then the ESP32 is connected up by Ethernet cable to the Netgear device. Okay, so this is the actual code. So I create a new file, testlan.py, so this is going to drive doing the pings and things. So the main change here is from my test.py is the way it connects to the network, so that it connects up to my ESP32 gateway Ethernet connection. So we see here it has a different set of parameters when it's doing the network connection. So same thing, I'm importing network. I'm setting L equals network LAN in this case. The pin that's going to be used for the MDC interface, the pin that's going to be used for the mdio interface. I'll show you this on the circuit diagram that comes with the ESP32 gateway to see where these numbers come from. The power pin that's going to be used, 12 in this case. The network type, so again, if we look at the circuit diagram, we see that it's using a LAN 8720 chip. The physical address, which is just set to 0, and the clock mode. So I'll put these details. It took a bit of a time to discover what the actual values were between what's out on the internet and what's in the circuit diagram for the ESP32 gateway, but these are the magic parameters, and seems to work with this card. After that, it's pretty much the same as connecting to the Wi-Fi network. So this shows the component diagram from the Olimex site. You can see here where the GPIO pins that are used and the chip that the Ethernet interface is based on is shown. And then I set the network interface to be active, set it to 1, and then while it's not connected, it's just going to go in a loop here with a 500 millisecond sleep in between until it is connected. So set it to active, and then it's going to take a little time for the network to be fired up and become active, and then at the end of that it says will tell you it's connected. So the next stage is before you can use the network, it's got to have an IP address set. So this will come from the ESP32 gateway talking to the Netgear device, which will act as a host network. And the way I check whether it's got a IP address assigned is to keep doing a lif config, which returns a tuple of parameters that includes the IP address that's set. And I'm going to get the first parameter, so tuple parameter 0, and store that at IP. Then while the IP is still 0.0.0.0, which means it hasn't been set, it'll stay in the loop until an IP address is recognized, something other than this 0.0.0.0. Once that's done, then I print out the address details that returns. Then I'm just using the same ping routine that I set up before, so the uping routine, the simplified one that I created, I was using with the Wi-Fi connection, and just doing 5 pings in a row. And I'm pinging the actual Netgear device. So remember, it's called 192.168.1.251 with 26-byte payload. That's the end of the pings, and it'll just do the disconnect from the network. Stay in a little loop until it's actually disconnected. So let's try this out. So I'm just going to upload all my files. It reboots the board, and then I'm going to do a run. So maybe I didn't save changes. So it's connecting, it's waiting for the IP address, and there it's done. Pings through the hardware Ethernet connection. So one thing that's promising here is, other than the first ping, all the rest of the ping times are very consistent and is lower than I ever got through the Wi-Fi connection on ESP32. So it's looking promising that this may be an alternative for some of the probes to use an Ethernet connection to get more reliable measurements. So the next thing I wanted to do was just test out my Bing routine. So let's uncomment that, run this again. So again, connecting to the LAN, getting the IP address. It's going to do the pings once it's got the IP address, and then it does all the Bing measurements. And one thing you notice here is it's saying that the loopback for the 26-byte is coming back with a higher value than the target 62, which is kind of interesting. So it was doing most of the measurements that I need for doing a Bing, but you see here loopback 127.0.0.1. When it goes out there, it's getting a 6-second time, which is higher than the time just to do a ping to the target address, which is only 4 seconds, which is pretty unusual. The loopback should be lower than anything that goes out on a wire, even a physical wire. So I'm going to have to look at why that's happening. It may be just peculiarity of how I'm setting this up, seeing I'm traveling and don't have a proper network. It kind of looks like it's using the ESP32 Wi-Fi hardware to do the loopback, which may have something to do with the network setup, or it may be just something weird. So I'm going to check this out when I get back home, have more network diagnostics and emulation capability to see why it's getting a higher number for ping times on loopbacks. But one choice I may have is, if I'm using Ethernet, I can maybe just remove that loopback measurement out of the Bing measurement. It may be that I don't even need to compensate for time to process the sending out the ICMP packets in the Ethernet scenario, because it's a lot faster. We see we get a lot lower numbers than I got when I was using Wi-Fi. But otherwise, it looks like it's all working. It's trying to do the right thing. Just have this problem with the loop back, so I'll decide what to do with that soon. But generally, it looks like I can use this board to connect to the physical Ethernet as well.